Welcome everyone to the Movement Building from Home community calls from Mozilla, yay. So Chad and I are organizing these calls. Chad's in the top left of my screen, he's waving there. So we work for the MOSFEST team, and we're excited to help you sort of sustain the continuity of your work through these difficult times. And we thought this would be a great time to hold a place for you to learn from each other, and also for us to share what we've been doing and what's worked for us. So without further ado, let's go into the agenda. I see many of you have already signed the roll call, so thank you for doing that. If you're just joining us, put your name in the roll call so we know who's here. And then we have info like your pronouns, languages, and where you're based. It's always fun to know where in the world people are. And then answer the check-in. How are you doing today? And what do you need from this call? We want to know sort of how we can best make this call suit you and help you and your needs today. So please fill that out. And feel free to keep typing in there as we go on down the agenda. So first up, we're at the welcome. We are using Zoom for these calls, mostly because for capacity, we wanted to make this as accessible as possible so people could join. And we'll be using the breakout room feature later. So you'll get to see that. I do recommend trying out the gallery view. So at the top right-hand corner, there's a little button where you can switch from speaker view to gallery view. I recommend gallery view, and you can sort of see everyone's faces all at once, which is fun. And these notes here are for you. Feel free to add your comments, your own notes, plus ones, GIFs, ask questions in here. It's for you to hack, and because I know it's a big call, it's gonna be hard for us to hear from everyone, so feel free to ask things here in the notes. And with that, I'll pass it to Chad.
Thanks very much. I am here for the community participation guidelines reminder that we'll share at the beginning of every call. We are here to be respectful, honest, inclusive, accommodating, appreciative, and open to learning from everyone else. We will not tolerate behaviors or attack, demean, disrupt, harass, or threaten others, or encourage any of those behaviors. There's a link near line 80-something now, if you have line numbers, top of page 2, I believe, perhaps page 3, yeah, page 3, that goes to the full community participation guidelines if you'd like to scope them out. And if you have something you'd like to discuss or an issue to report, you can report to either Abby or myself. If you feel like you need to report to someone else, you can just ping us for someone else to report to as well. Abby, you want to talk about our goals today?
Cool. So our goals for this call, we do want to check in with our community and just hold space to listen to each other. There has been a lot going on, to share advice on successful online meetings, and also to understand the challenges and opportunities online meetings bring to movement building. We want to help you really sustain your movements over time. And we hope that this will help you have a stronger movement afterwards, like when we come out of this. Back to Chad.
Thanks. We're going to start just with one of the ways that we encourage participation on these calls, just something we call silent documenting. Once upon a time, we called it silent ether padding, but now we're here in a Google Doc. And it's just a time for folks to kind of share a little bit, activate some prior knowledge, kind of do a lightweight contribution of what's on your minds. And since we're talking about online meetings this week, I'd like to invite you to take, about maybe 5-6 minutes or so, and to share a little bit about what's worked well in online meetings that you've had since we've entered into kind of this new space together. And then what challenges have you faced? And these will help us kind of share resources, share knowledge, and come back to conversations later on. You can +1. I would say that you are more than welcome to ask some great constructive questions, ask folks to unpack a little bit of what they mean. But a theme throughout this call will be reminding you that we're not here to judge, we're not here to argue, we're not here to solutioneer for others, mostly to listen. So this is an opportunity for you to share, to affirm, to be heard, and to hear others. I'm gonna set a timer for about 5 minutes. We'll come back, and anyone who'd like to share out loud or to vocalize or talk about any of these things further for a little bit can do that. And if you are calling in or it's difficult to type at the moment, feel free just to share out loud, and I will note take for you as well. All right, I'm gonna go ahead and set the timer for 5, unless there are questions. All right. we're just about halfway there. Feel free to keep contributing, or if you already have, take a look at what others have written and see if there's anything you'd like to plus one or ask a question about. It's like a few folks are still typing, which is great. A few others are still adding plus ones. We'll give it about a minute and then see if we can summarize some things, do any share alouds we'd like to do before we move on in the agenda. All right, it looks like things are slowing down. If you're still plus oneing, still finishing a thought, please do continue. These notes will be here, they'll be alive, they'll be accessible to add to asynchronously and to come back to for ideas and resources. So, please continue to contribute as you see fit as we continue here. Would anyone like to share any of their observations or questions out loud? I'm happy to kind of summarize some trends, but would anybody else like to speak first? And you can use the raise hand feature if you'd like, or you can just speak or share however you'd like.
I'll share. This is Jessica here. I'm over on the East Coast of Virginia.
Thank you.
So what's been working? I love being home. It's been great. We've been trying to find a platform that's best for our area. It's hard. A lot of folks around here are very rural, so the internet's not always great. I'm lucky enough to have the fiber optics, so it hasn't been too tough. We've been using Google Hangouts for a lot of inter-office communication. And let's see, I think agendas have been huge. That's always been huge for us. We've done a lot of online meetings before, so it's not too different. And I think the biggest challenge that we've kind of faced is, like I said, just the internet connection for some folks. And I saw someone else said that it's tiring to have online meetings. I guess I'm kind of used to them. So I haven't found that to be an issue yet, but definitely trying to get everybody involved is a little harder online and kind of pulls a little bit more of your energy out.
Thank you. That was great. That was just the right size as well. About a minute share there. Anybody else like to share any of their successes or challenges? Thank you.
Thanks.
Sure. So I'm Sarah. I live in Boston, Massachusetts, in the U.S. I work at Boston College, and I am also enjoying being home, although I wish it was under different circumstances. I have actually found it easier to kind of check in with people on a regular basis, because it tends to be easier for my coworkers to say, hey, let's jump on a call, for 5 minutes, than to like try to set up a meeting through the I mean, that can just get really overwhelming. So while we don't have those maybe serendipitous conversations that we would have had in the break room or in the hallway, which I do miss, it is pretty easy for us to stay in contact with each other. And somebody in the chat mentioned coffee hour. We've just started doing that as well, where Friday mornings we set aside 30 minutes. People can come in, chat about what's ever on their mind, hopefully somewhat work related, but not necessarily. And then, kind of go about their day. And it's not mandatory, but we do find that lots of people are enjoying the opportunity to connect with each other and, get to see their coworkers virtually.
Thank you. Maybe time for one more share, or I'm happy to surface some things that I saw in there.
Hi there, this is Julie. I'm in California. I wrote that about coffee hour too, so I thought I could just say one more
Great.
little thing about how we do it. So this is something that we actually do weekly in person. We started it, so it's on the calendar and everybody comes. It's a chance for everybody to be in the same physical place and make announcements and then just mingle for a half an hour period. And we brought that online by using this gallery view so that everybody can see each other. There's announcements verbally to everyone. And then we use that breakout group feature to put about 3 or 4 random people together and just give them, the next, up to that half an hour to chat and share or leave if they need to or whatever, but it's trying to simulate those random encounters that are really nice for the community.
Great. Thank you. I'll just share that in looking at both the successes and the challenges, I think a couple of things that came up in both contexts, right, is different needs for accessibility, for structure, and then there's also an interesting thread through a few of the comments and the successes that I think will come up later on as well in our talk today. This idea of kind of like co-facilitation. We're not trying to facilitate alone right now, and really sharing some of that work across people, because there can be a lot to attend to on different platforms. Certainly a lot to attend to when we all get together in a community like this. So this is a great list. Thank you so much. Such activity here. I can tell you're paying attention to each other with all the plus oneing, and would encourage you to continue in that vein as we go on in the call. Abby, I think we're going to talk a little bit about our approach to online meetings now. Is that right?
Yeah. And well, a nice transition might be one of the questions that came in the chat. Asking, Chad, did you say share alouds? Can you define that term? I think maybe you said share outs, but
yeah, well, share alouds, yeah, absolutely. So whenever we do silent documenting, we like to make sure of a couple of things. We like to make sure everyone knows it's also fine to share out loud, and we'll note take. Whatever works for the folks who are on the call and in the community is exactly what we want. But then also whenever we do shared insights, just because people can get, they can have a lot to contribute. They can get into some question answer threads. They can plus one a bunch of stuff and kind of forget to give their contribution because of their enthusiasm for others' contributions. So whenever we do silent documenting, we like to have a period of, we generally call it shared insights, but share outs or share alouds, where folks have an opportunity either to vocalize something they said that they'd like to just surface and share again, something they noticed and something somebody else said, anything they want to share out loud and kind of like bookmark in terms of a conversation. But that can also be done via text through comments and things like that as well.
Yeah.
So aloud is probably not the best word for that, and I apologize, but the idea that after we do silent documenting, there's a chance to reflect again.
Cool. Thanks, Chad.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and with that, I think we'll transition into sharing a little bit about how we've done this at Mozilla, and happy to hear your reactions to this and your additions to this. So first up is this accessible platforms piece, which has come up already. And really, there are a lot of different platforms we can use both for video conferencing and for taking these collaborative notes. And it is important for you to assess the community needs for privacy and security with who you're talking with. For these calls specifically, we knew we wanted, like, these are going to be recorded and uploaded and like something public that people can join. So we thought Zoom would be best for this, since for stability wise, it allows a lot of people, and we really like using the breakout rooms. to help you talk to each other in smaller groups. But if I was having like a really serious private conversation, I'd use something like Signal. So just knowing like where you can go for different things and your different needs. I think no video conferencing option has everything right now. So it is good to have these different options. So I see many people are adding your own, so feel free to add your own there. So some other ones, there's Zoom. Jitsi is a great open source option. Google Meets, Google Hangouts, we've already talked about. Signal is really good for privacy. I trust them for privacy, but I've only ever had one-on-one conversations with Signal. I don't know if it's possible to have a bigger conversation. And then there's many others that are put there. Whereby, Riot I thought was the Matrix, the text one, but if you can also do video chat, that's awesome. Blue Jeans, I've used a couple of times. Microsoft Teams, yeah, so people are putting things there. And I encourage you just to evaluate things properly. And we did implement a lot of Zoom security features since like Zoom bombing became a thing. So you may have noticed like passwords on these Zoom meetings, and you had a waiting room. So there is a post, it's down in our links below, on how to help prevent some of these things happening in Zoom. And I think Zoom is doing a lot of good work researching this and trying to implement this in the future. So for collaborative notes, we do use Google Docs, mostly again for ease. But Etherpad, we used to use Etherpad a lot, and that was great, but we did have some security issues with that and moved away. HackMD is also great if you know Markdown. There's CryptPad, which I think is similar to Etherpad, and Board.net, which I've never used. So feel free to keep adding things there. Instant messaging, yeah, and then for IM, there's Slack, Matrix, IRC, many other ways you can chat. But yeah, assess their needs and then make sure you're supporting like what's most needed in that community. Cool. And now we'll just go through a few of the tips that we follow for our bigger online calls, and even our smaller ones actually. And yeah, so the first one is having a roll call as a check-ins, which you already experienced. So doing that helps, it's like a nice way to get people into writing in the notes, because not everyone's used to having shared notes from meetings, especially if you're meeting in person. It's also a nice place to share things like pronouns or where people are located. So you can ask for those things nicely and not be putting people on the spot if they don't want to share it. It's also a nice way to follow up with people who can't attend, so they can put stuff there and they can follow up with who was there. And it's nice for you to follow up too. So if got a little confused while reading. Yes. And we had that nice check-in question asking like what you want to get out of this call and really checking in with you. So it's a nice way to hear from everyone, even though we can't stop and unmute all of you and hear one from all 35 people who are on this call right now. And can everyone hear me? Oh no, Chad lost audio, not everyone. Okay, we're fine. The next section is having multiple forms of contribution. So because people are used to just speaking up in a call, and it's not always possible, especially in a larger call, having things like the notes so people can write down what they're thinking or write it in the chat, it's always great. Also having a note taker, if possible, really helps people contribute the way that they best can. If they're better at thinking on the spot, making sure that there is a note taker who can write down what is going on. And it's great for people who join late or maybe had internet connectivity issues and had to drop off. When they do join, they can sort of just skim the pad and like know everything that's happened. Asynchronous contribution. This one's important again for like the people who drop off and need to come back, making sure that this document is here for them to add comments to or still add in after the meeting's done. But even for things like when you're running out of time on a call and you have to move on to the next item, giving space for people to still ask questions on the last item while the meeting is still going forward makes a nice way to keep the meeting going. You can talk to each other. Robust documentation. Yeah, so we are recording this. It will be uploaded with the auto caption feature on YouTube. So making sure people, for accessibility, people can read the captions there. And also, Chad, what did you mean by summarizing on other channels?
Yeah, so one of the things that you'll find with this series of calls and other programs that we run is that we try to do, for example, like an email at the beginning of the week to everyone who's registered, letting them know what's coming up, and then an email at the end of the week, kind of sharing the notes again, sharing any recordings that were made, inviting further contribution there. The reminders of those things can also go out on things like Slack or other platforms that you use for internal or external social messaging. But the idea is just to remind folks maybe who couldn't make it, folks who had to leave early, about what's there, right? Come check this out, see what's there, and please contribute what you can if something new has occurred to you.
Thank you, Chad. That was helpful. The next item we have is breakout rooms, which is very much right now, it's a Zoom feature, but I'm hopeful that other platforms will start implementing this. But you will be experiencing a breakout room after this section where you can put people into smaller Zoom calls. Something we like to do is have 2 or 3 question prompts for people to discuss, and then rooms of 3 to 4 people, and give them like 10, 15 minutes. We find that works really well for letting people talk to each other. Sometimes if you do groups of 2 only, if one of them is having connection issues, then you just have a person sitting by themselves in a room. So that's why we like to have at least 3 rather than the 2. And then make sure on your calls you do have a clear call to action, next steps, and to-dos, especially if it just makes a meeting much better and like having that agenda. So before I move on to questions, Chad, anything to add?
No, I think let's go to questions and make sure that we get to answer as many as we can.
Yeah. So if you have any questions, feel free to either unmute yourself and just ask, or you can write it here in the doc.
I have a question. Can
Yeah.
you okay?
Yes.
Hi, my name is Stevana. I'm in Texas. So one issue I'm having, and I wrote this up in the section about hasn't been working well for conference calls, is that I'm working with people from like Thailand and India and China, and not all countries give access to all these different software options. And also some of the folks don't have stable internet connections at their house during the pandemic. Like normally they might be at like a university or something, but and so we're trying to figure out a way for people to call in with like a toll-free phone number so they're not getting charged long distance calls. And I didn't know if anyone knows of any software besides GoTo that allows that. And like the to use GoTo to do that, I think like I have to be on a professional plan or pay more money, you know.
Right.
That toll-free option.
Jessica here again. I don't know if you've heard of free conference call. Freeconferencecall.com. I think you can do up to 20-something people, maybe more. But they offer both the local and the
Are they only restricted to 15 countries? Do you know if they?
I don't know the answer to that question. I'm sorry.
It's okay. I think I looked at them and it was they had some country restrictions.
Okay. Sorry.
It's okay. Thank you for trying.
Yeah, that's a tricky question. I don't know any platforms off the top of my head. Feel free to, if anyone can chime in. Oh, Leah's saying if you have a paid Zoom account, you can request a toll-free option be added for a few cents a minute, which is something. Ways that Chad and I have addressed this in the past was just letting people move to chat. So for different mentorship calls, they would just chat over Telegram instead of the audio, which isn't ideal, but you use what you have.
Yeah, I've used the Zoom professional account, also from the university, and they did offer free email or free phone in, but not from a lot of countries that I saw, and only from the countries where it's needed least, I suppose. So that doesn't really help.
Yeah, and I noticed they have been adding more countries over the years that I've been using Zoom, which is nice, but I think it's not everywhere yet, for sure. Another question we have is, can you talk about how you encourage people to use chat versus writing in the doc? Yeah, one thing we do, because chat isn't saved, and for people who join late don't see chat, I don't actually encourage people to use chat. It's great if people use it, I think, but having the doc there is better for people who are joining late. It's better for people catching up afterwards. You can save the chat in Zoom, but sometimes it saves your private messages also, so you have to be clear about that. There were some issues on Twitter last week. It's fine to leave your comments in the chat, just know that they're more temporal. So if you have something that you don't want recorded in the docs, then it's fine to put it in chat. And we are watching both of them. Yeah. Any other questions?
Just one note on the chat. We tend to use it for like sidebar conversation, not a distracting sidebar, but something that might be a tangent to the main thread of the conversation, but you don't want to lose, or you want to make sure that people see it, but you don't want to distract from what you're on. And that's one way to employ it.
Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah, and I know a lot of other communities will use it for like raising your hand if people want to speak. They'll just write /hand in the chat. Yeah. Cool. And yeah, if you do have to drop off, we are recording this, so it's good. There's a fun thing, GoToMeeting, that private chats are recorded and visible if you save the chat. Yeah, that's true for Zoom also. So remember that if you're trying to save chat. And we did disable saving chat for participants, just to help with privacy and just in case people are doing DMs.
Mind you, this can get incredibly embarrassing.
Yep. Yep. Thanks, Oscar. All right. And with that, Chad, actually, can you make me host so I can do the rooms before you start?
Would you rather? Sure.
Yeah, just so you can be talking while I...
All right. There we go. Perfect. All right. Yeah, we are right on time here. We're at the point in our call where we are going to join some breakout rooms. For those of you who maybe haven't done a breakout room before, it's a feature on Zoom that will let us break up this call into several smaller video rooms, so to speak, with just a few people each to have some kind of like more, some smaller scale conversations, a bit more sharing and introductions to one another for kind of community and trust building. We are going to share some prompts with you, but first I just want to remind you of the community participation guidelines we went over at the beginning of the call. And we have some really specific asks of you. Please work your hardest to listen and to thank each other for contributions and to share your own experiences without getting into judgment or solutioneering or explaining back to someone something, right? This is a time to kind of voice what we're going through and trying to run these meetings, build these communities in very challenging times. And we want folks to feel like they are heard. And if they ask for, what have you done? Of course, respond. But the idea here is to hear and be heard. And I know around the world, we all give feedback in very different ways, and there are cultural norms about kind of level and specificity and directness. But for this series of calls, I'm just going to ask us to default to a common denominator of kindness in following these tips. Of course, only share what you feel comfortable sharing. It is fine to pass. It is fine to be general rather than specific. And if you need help during one of these breakout rooms or you'd like clarification, there's a ask for help button down at the bottom that will bring Abby or me into the call. Now, in these rooms themselves, we'd like you just to say hello and maybe introduce yourself. Who are you? Maybe what part of the world you're from. It doesn't have to be hyper local. And what brings you here? Share again what brings you to this call. We'd like you then maybe to share something that felt like a success or brought you some joy this week, something that felt like a challenge this week, and then maybe share some of the strengths you've discovered in yourself or colleagues since you've begun doing this work from home, or you've begun planning to do this work from home. What are some discoveries you've made about the strengths you and others have in your community? Are there any questions about that prompt? All right. We're going to go into these rooms for about 15 minutes. We're going to try to have about 3 people per room. That means every 5 minutes or so, it's a good idea to switch question or to switch speakers if folks haven't spoken yet. And we'll broadcast reminders to you to do that as well. That's something we like to do in these meetings and we think is a good practice to follow. If there are no questions, Abby, you want to invite people to the rooms? Okay, we will stop the recording as well and see you all back here in 15, unless you need help, in which case we'll come to you.
I set it to send people automatically this time. Well, let me pause. Welcome, everyone. I love that sound being told it's recording. I hope you made some new friends in your breakout room. But we're on to the shared insight section. So we have a few prompts there. What did we discover? How can we help each other? What knowledge and resources do we have to share? And feel free to answer these questions verbally. You can unmute yourself and Chad will be taking notes in that note section, or you can write your answers in, as many of you are doing right now. So we'll give you a second to do that. And also huge thanks to whoever added links for all of the platforms in the accessible meetings section. You are a hero for linking them all. That's great. But back to shared insights. Does anyone want to verbalize anything that happened in their breakout room?
Jess here. I was with Carrie and Aaliyah, and we all found out that we have a connection to the Eastern Shore of Virginia. So that was pretty cool. And then we were able to kind of chat about some similar things that we're all working on in terms of how to get work groups going, and the successes of just being grateful to have our jobs and finding a way to adjust remotely.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, definitely feeling gratitude for still having a job right now.
For folks who don't know the Eastern Shore of Virginia, it's a tiny part of the world. It's a very random chance that we all have some connection there.
It's amazing. Any other fun insights from the other groups?
I'll jump in.
Thanks, Hillary.
I was talking with Patricia and Gabriella, and we all kind of mentioned that there's like a humanizing aspect of, if done well, there's a humanizing aspect of remote calls, and so kind of how to continue that and try and find like connection as we're all in kind of a new part of our lives. That was something that we enjoyed. And then also that sometimes calls cannot be that way, and so if you're listening in, how can you kind of, Patricia mentioned like using that time to not to be distracted, but like to kind of keep working on like maybe a hobby craft that can help you stay focused on the actual call, but like keep engaged in that way. And if there are other tips that people have, I'd be curious.
Yeah, I've seen people knitting on calls and things like that. It's always fun. Thanks, Hillary. Yeah, and I definitely agree with these video calls, especially with the pandemic. Just you're seeing people in much more personal settings. You see like their families, their pets, their homes that you don't get to usually. So it is a nice humanizing aspect.
I have one thing to share. I think in our group, I mean, we acknowledge that the circumstances that's creating quarantine is horrible, but that there's also these like small positive outcomes or changing in how we live and see the world and think about, you know, just what's going on in our own heads, sometimes more healthy right now. And so are there ways to sort of take those insights and carry them forward after this goes away, assuming it does?
Yeah, that's great. Thanks, other Chad. I'll take a quick look at what people have written. There's a lot of +1s for creating compendium of links and platforms, resources, topic specific. For example, classroom support, sustainability topics, climate, science. Yeah, for sure. We are sharing some links below, but if anyone's starting these lists, please share here. I think that would be very useful for many of us. Archer loves the background some people have. Really creative efforts. I'm also appreciating that. Before I upgraded Zoom, I was really into the Snap camera, where it uses the Snapchat filters for Zoom cameras, and it was my favorite thing. But security, I can't do that anymore. We have time to hear from maybe one more person. All right. So I'm reading through, yeah, a lot of these you seem to have verbalized already. So with that, I think I'll just pass it off to Chad. I think we'll
Thank you.
summarize things off. Yeah.
Yeah, thanks, Abby. Thank you, everyone, for all these great contributions and insights. We're going to end each call with kind of like a closing circle where we share some reminders with each other, where we can share things that are kind of helping us now, or give shout outs of gratitude to folks that are helping us now, who are helping us. It's a place where we can drop peer assists. And remember, each week there'll be multiple calls. They'll all be here on this one document eventually. But this is something you can come back to look for. You can look at the request for peer assist, for example, and see what folks are working on. And if it's something you might contribute to or something you might share a resource with, it's a great way to stay connected during these times. And I think, like as other chat said and as his group discussed, the big movement building focus coming out of today's meeting is if there were things that seemed useful and helpful and humanizing that we described, that we did, or that you brought and you shared with others on this call, bookmark those in your mind, bookmark those in your heart, bookmark those in your browser. These are the things to continue and to carry forward. These are the things that will help us sustain our work right now, fuel our activism, give us and others hope. Exactly the same things that we're going to need later on, and that we'll want to continue doing, and that will continue to kind of strengthen our communities and our activism. That being said, we also have a reminder each week. There's a survey. If you could take 5 minutes at the end of this call and complete this survey, we would appreciate it so much. It's a chance to give us kind of general feedback about how useful this call was to you, but also to let us know what worked, what didn't work, things you would change, and things that surprised you, so that we can make tomorrow's call for the next group better, and we can make a week 2 call for this group better. We're very big on taking feedback as real time as we can and making the changes that will help you. Please put your own reminders there if you'd like to let anybody know about something coming up. Perhaps your organization has a resource to share or a call that it's hosting. It's great to put there. You can put that in shares and shout outs as well if you want. Shout outs is a great place to share gratitude if you'd like to do that. And if you have a request for a peer assist, if you are working on a project and you're looking for particular kinds of contributions, testers, anything like that, go ahead and put that there. At the bottom of each week, you're also going to find a list of weekly resources that we've started to put together. This one got split in half. There we go. And it's going to end with an invitation to add more. So again, these are things that folks have sent us or that we've seen in our own feeds. But if you have other things like this week that will help people run great online meetings, go ahead and add them. We've got 5 ways to stay involved with Mozilla if you're curious about the Mozilla community. And in your email, you've gotten an invitation to our MozFest community Slack, where we can continue conversations. But that's it. If you can, let us know how we're doing, complete that survey. Go ahead and give some shout outs and share some gratitude and thanks with the world. Let us know what you're working on and how we can help. And take a look at these resources. There are lots of approaches to doing this work really well. We wanted to share a little bit about what we do. We wanted you all to have a chance to share with another what you did. And in particular, there's one on here called Building Virtual Rooms for Online Participation from Training for Change. If you want to break from the old Google Doc and get into something wild like the Google slide, that's the resource for you. With that, Abby, any final words to share, or anybody else?
No, that was great. It was really nice to see all your faces. Many old friends on here, a lot of new friends too. So hello. I hope you'll be joining us the next few weeks. So next week will be, Chad, do you remember what we called it? The community of care.
Yes, community care is week 2. And after that, personal ecology, and we'll close up week 4 with community management.
Yeah, so we hope to see you over the next few weeks. If you registered, you'll get an email with the recording and the notes on Friday, probably. And I think that's it. So, yeah, we can stop the recording.
Thank you very much. All right. I will attempt to do that. There we go.
Okay, bye everyone.